I'd like to call to order the Fire District Board meeting of January 18th. Would y'all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag
of
of
the
the United States of America
and to the
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all.
Can we have the roll call, please, Chris?
Yes, ma'am. Aldrich,
Here.
Beckman,
Here.
Fox.
Here.
Verplank,
Here.
Phelps,
Here.
Pullen,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
and then also it looks like Chief Janik and Peter.
Okay, would you please all silence your cell phones, and you really shouldn't be texting during a meeting, so I would appreciate it if you would refrain from texting. That's against the Open Meetings Act. Could we have an approval of the agenda, please?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as it stands.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Phelps and a second by Pullen to approve the agenda as it stands. Is there any discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Ma'am, Phelps,
Yes.
Pullen,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Aldrich,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Verplank,
Yes,
and Miller.
Yes.
Passes 7-0, ma'am.
thank you. Could we have the approval of the minutes of the December 21st board meeting, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from December 21.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Beckman and a second by Phelps.
I think Fox was first, but whichever.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Fine, 2 Fox.
second by Fox. Is there any discussion? Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Beckman,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Phelps,
Yes.
Pullen,
Yes.
Aldrich,
Yes.
Verplank,
Yes.
and Miller.
Yes.
Passes 7-0, ma'am.
Thank you. We have a special guest speaker this afternoon.
Public comments
Oh,
first,
I'm
isn't it,
sorry.
ma'am? I'm
Oh.
sorry, let me get back to the agenda.
Sorry.
Nope,
Okay.
my bad.
Do we have any comments, public comments on agenda items only? Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody wish to speak? Okay, now we have a special guest. Dan Veldhuizen from Siegfried Crandall is here to do our audit report. Dan, you can have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me to your meeting again, as we do every year. I think I've been coming to your meetings for about 20 years, but I really enjoy the Zoom meeting today because it seems like every time I come to one of your meetings, I get caught in a snowstorm. Probably 19 of the 20 years that I've come, it feels like it. So it's kind of nice to do it from my office. But I certainly appreciate the relationship we've had with the fire department for so long. And I think it's also important to tell you that we really enjoy working with the people. Greg does a nice job, but Peter does an excellent job as your accountant. I think you probably all know that and have heard me say that before. So that's an important thing to hear from your auditor. I'll be fairly brief today. Most of you have heard me talk before. I think I see Stacy there. She had to hear me just a few nights ago. So I apologize for that, Stacy.
I'll take a nap.
It may sound fairly similar. What I like to do is really focus on 2 things, and those are the auditor communications, and then give you a few comments about your financial condition. When I look at the auditor communications, Chris, you're very good. That's exactly where I wanted to start. The auditor's report is exactly what you hired us to do. There's a couple key concepts there. First of all, responsibility. you'll see in bold management's responsibility and the auditor's responsibility. I think it's important that you know that ultimately it's your management's responsibility to prepare these financial statements and for the internal controls or checks and balances over the transactions, even though we helped you prepare for the financial statements. It's our responsibility to express opinions on the financial statements, and that is it. Nothing more, nothing less. And at the bottom of that, the second page, Chris,
Did it go too far?
yeah, just a little, yeah, at the very top of that page right there, under opinions, we say that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. I think it's important that all of you know that if you look at every governmental unit in the state of Michigan, they will all read like this word for word, which might surprise some of you, but it's a requirement on our part to follow our professional standards. This be known as an unmodified opinion. The only way we can do that is we continue to ask management to make corrections or adjustments to their records in order to allow us to provide an unmodified opinion. So it's really important that you know how many corrections we made. I don't know if you have in your document the separate letter that we issued. I don't think I saw it in there, Chris, but that's okay. What I really wanted to refer to, I have it in front of me. Oftentimes when I talk to boards or councils, I go through the long list of adjustments that we have to prepare sometimes. In all of your cases, both the cities and the township, we have relatively few adjustments. In your case, we adjust for the net pension liability and make a few other adjustments to allow us to do the government-wide financial statements. But there's a bullet point list of only 2 items. So Peter does an excellent job, as I'm sure he does at the city, and we do very few adjustments. That's excellent from an auditor's perspective. If you read that letter, it says that those things are material weaknesses. That sounds like a bad comment. I think it's an unfair expectation for a governmental unit your size to give us everything perfectly. That's really what the standard is. But I want you to know that Peter does a nice job. We made no corrections to your fund financial statements that I'm sure he provides you every board meeting. Just a few comments on the financial position. Chris, if you don't mind just going down a couple of pages to page 5.
Oh, sorry. One more. There we go.
Perfect. That's a little bit small, but if you can read it, I thought I would compliment all of you. Oftentimes I go to the financials, but thought I would look at the management's discussion and analysis. More people that I talk to really seem to appreciate this narrative overview of the financials. So we'll look at just the highlights there. It says that the district's net position increased by 190,000. The total net position was 2.2 million. Unrestricted is 802,000. And the unassigned fund balance is 879,000. Those are the highlights. In order to look in more detail at that first one, if you could forward it to page 7, Chris. Page 7 does talk about that increase in net position. You can see a summary financial statement, shows revenues and expenditures and the change in net position of the 190,000. Even though the change was similar, there were a lot of changes, significant changes this year because you increased revenue by $237,000 due to a 0.2 mil increase in your taxes. And expenses also increased substantially by $270,000. That was primarily due to an increase in personnel costs. You hired a new full-time person and you paid stipends to the on-call firefighters. So you increased taxes just slightly to cover those costs. As I've experienced in the past, the board does a very nice job of managing its finances, and that kind of shows there. If you go back up a page, Chris, there is a condensed statement of financial position. We'll just look at this instead of the statements themselves. The second row from the bottom shows unrestricted net position. That's technically your net worth. The total net position is total equity of 2.2 million, but a lot of that is tied up in capital assets, $1.4 million. So 802,000 is really your true equity. Then if you could go forward to page 24, Chris. Page 23 and 24 are known as a budgetary comparison schedule. They probably look a lot like your BSNA budget to actual reports that you get periodically from Peter. A couple of things to point out here. Fund balance, which is different from net position, is $888,000. That's really the money that you have available to spend. And that's a nice, healthy position. I look at it in comparison to expenditures. It's 59% of your total expenditures, which also show up on that page of $1,494,000. We often say that if you're at 25 to 50% of your current year expenditures, that's a very healthy fund balance. By no means excessive, but also healthy. So 59% is probably right where you need to be. So that just shows that you're managing your finances well and you're in a healthy financial position. One final comment is on page 25. And that gives you, there's far too many numbers there related to your defined benefit pension plan. The column to the left represents your most recent year. You can see total pension liability is about $535,000. What you have available, what's been invested is about $410,000, and the net liability is $125,000. So funding is at 77%. So a couple positives here. The net liability went down about $15,000 and your funding went up at 77%. That's a great place to be. I think MERS, who manages your plan, would like you to be at 80%, but that's a very healthy place to be too. Just so you know, MERS has lowered their discount rate and changed some assumptions, which will increase the liability next year. So in order to keep that funding percentage, you'll probably want to increase contributions, or that's one way to keep that funding percentage. And I know that's of interest to all of you to make sure that that's adequately funded. That's all I have, but I'd be happy to answer any specific questions now or at any time throughout the year.
Does anyone have any questions of Dan?
Oh, I think it looks pretty good. I can say I'm happy with it.
Dan, can you, on page 4 of your letter?
The separate letter?
Yes.
I don't know that it's in your,
May not be. I'm looking at it.
I have it. Dan, go ahead.
The question, it's not really a question. I just see if I could get a little color on the paragraph that begins with the italicized effect.
Okay.
It has the sound to it of an issue of some note, and then reading on, I sort of concluded it's really not that big a deal, but I would like to hear somebody who is an accountant as opposed to someone like me who sleeps with an accountant address that.
That's an excellent question, actually. I appreciate it. If you go back to the previous page, Dan, that's where we kind of summarize what the issue is. And we say that there were material audit adjustments. There are 2 bullet points there. Really, the main one we record in order to prepare your external financial statements relates to that net pension liability. I think if Peter were with us, he'd probably say, I don't have anything to do with that. We spend hours trying to calculate what the liability is and what the deferred inflows and deferred outflows are. So every municipality I work with that has a defined benefit pension plan, we help them adjust those things. It's a fairly complicated calculation. Like I said before, we don't make a single adjustment to your fund financial statements. These relate to the external financial statements. So going back to the effect, we say technically that the accounting records were misstated because that net pension liability hasn't been changed since the previous year. So we had to make a material adjustment to accounts like the liability, deferred inflows and deferred outflows, and the pension expense. So you're exactly right that it sounds like a really bad thing. But what I wanted to point out before was that almost everybody that I work with needs a lot of help with the net pension liability and preparing their financial statements. This is just not something you would expect of somebody like Peter or others that do the accounting for municipalities. And the thing is that technically auditors can't be involved in the system of internal control. So that's why we kind of point that out. It also looks like we like commas way too much because there's way too many commas in that paragraph. Maybe we'll work on that. That's a great question, Dan. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for that. It helps to have it on the record so that somebody watching or viewing this later on,
Okay,
it's there for them as well. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
This is a rather common thing, isn't it? I retired the Sewer and Water Authority and I was their bookkeeper, and all this stuff looked pretty common to me.
That's
there's always-
that's a very good comment too. I often say that we work with 100 governments roughly. I think all but 5 of them don't get this letter. And most of those
Oh,
5
they may-
either have somebody with 35 years of experience or they have a simpler situation.
Yeah.
So they don't have defined benefit pension plans, for example. So while we call it a material weakness or things like significant deficiencies, that's something that we have to do according to our professional standards. It's not as desperate as it sounds. It's one way.
No. It's not at all.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Good as always.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, wait,
Thank you.
you're just thanking?
Thanking you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Okay, moving on. Now we'll move to the other financial authority, Peter. Can we have a request for payments, please?
I'll make a motion to pay the bills of $111,598.11.
I'll support Aldrich.
Okay. We have a motion by Phelps and a second by Aldrich to pay the bills. Is there any discussion? Anybody? No questions?
Smaller amount for change.
Yeah, there wasn't very many checks to sign. All right.
No.
We have a,
Southside body and fabrication, is that for the cabinets for the pumper or for the tanker?
Yes, Scott, that was the cabinet replacement project that evolved into a repair because the failed plumbing and replacement plumbing for the pump.
Okay.
On the tanker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay. Are there any other questions? Can we have a roll call vote, please, Chris?
Yes, ma'am. Phelps,
Yes.
Aldrich,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Verplink,
Yes.
Pullen,
Yes.
and Miller.
Yes.
Passes 7-0, ma'am.
Thank you. Moving on, can we have a financial report, Peter?
Okay, so the revenues, they're starting to come in from the 2 cities in the township. People are paying their individual winter tax bills. You can see Saugatuck City's at 43% of their budget paid. Saugus or Douglas is at 38, and we've only got 8% from the township. And the rest of the revenues are right on course where we need to be. The expense side, there's a couple of them will have a budget adjustment. We're still over budget on the professional service. A lot of it's to do with the legal fees from the Board of Appeals. And then I think boat maintenance, we're gonna have to do something down there, then technology. And I don't know if anybody has any other particular questions that jump out in front of them or? But we're halfway through the fiscal, more than halfway through the fiscal year. And I think we're in fairly good shape so far. Operational wages, you know, we're at 81%. We're gonna have to, there's some money from career firefighters that we need to bring down because the clerk position was never filled so far this year. But the fire calls, you know, that we're only at 37% of the budget, and the medicals at right on target, just shy of 50% right now. And the paid on call, the stipends right there at 55%. So I think overall we're in fairly decent shape. I don't know if anybody has any questions or issues or.
Peter, the workers' comp insurance, I know we pay those in chunks.
Yes.
We accounted for new people and things like that.
Yeah, so no, it's it's paid quarterly, so we still have one more payment. And I think that $9,600 that's left is actually going to be short because I believe our payment we made at the first year was like about $13,000, and it's probably going to be short because we know we had that $27,000 federal grant that we gave, paid everybody $1,000 back, and we were on the hook for the all the expenses, the Social Security, Medicare, and the workers' comp costs. So at $9,600, that's probably going to be short because we'll have a bill here the 1st of April, and I'm sure it's going to be north of $13,000.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said thank you.
Peter, that last fire truck payment, when does that come out?
I think it's either the first, I think it's the end of 1st of March is when it's due. I'll get a invoice here shortly from Chemical Bank, and we'll get that paid probably in the next board meeting. That'll be paid.
Okay, and so that's it. That truck is paid.
That truck, the KME, what's that? The
2112?
Yeah, 2112. That will be paid in full here by this spring.
Hallelujah.
Good. Good, yeah, yes,
Any
good.
questions?
Shane,
Greg?
thank you. Peter, we have not applied the $58,000 to operational wage line item, correct? That we got from the feds?
Yeah, no, the 58,000 that's up there in other federal, yeah, we have not, you know,
Okay.
pushed that money back into the expense side of it. Yeah, if you look on the bottom of page 2, the far left-hand column, the net of revenues and expenditures, it shows you that there's still just shy of $67,000. Scroll down a little bit more, Chris.
Oops, sorry, hold on. There we go.
Yeah, see right there at the bottom, the left-hand column, about the center of the page, there's $67,000 right now in the budget of revenue that we haven't pushed back into an expense of it, and 58,000 of it is from that federal grant that we got back in September. So I think, yeah, Greg and I have talked about, we're just trying to get through COVID. Hopefully we don't have a rash of everybody being ill and being out because of sickness. So next month or two, we'll have to get a budget adjustment and push that revenue back up in the expenses where they need to be.
Thank you, Peter.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Peter. Moving on,
Thank you, Peter.
we'll go on to fire chief comments, please.
Thank you. Good evening, board. Incident reports and year-end reports we're going to address in 12B. So new business, so I'll hold that. Community risk reduction, sadly, we had 125 fire deaths in 2020. Interesting enough, smoking was one of the leading cause of fire causes. Cooking and then heating. The 3 areas of origin you can see are the living room. What's happening with fires is important for everyone to understand. The fires are happening so fast in lightweight construction that people sometimes cannot get out. So they find them in the hallway or in the living room. So, you know, this stuff is all studied. It's not just in a bedroom or in a kitchen. It definitely leads to the front door through a living room. So important to know. For those of us that are older, you can see in the pie chart on the right-hand side, you know, 40 to 69 is a 53% tile of the amount of fire deaths. And it usually hits males. Don't know why, but that's just the way it is. And we are still dealing with a society that does not particularly maintain smoke detectors, something as basic as that. So everyone in the fire service has the goal in mind and initiative to continue to educate the public the importance of testing your smoke alarm. And in our area, we're blessed with a fire board that recognizes our efforts and supports us with changing batteries, installing smoke detectors, and servicing those to the extent possible. So just wanted to share that with you. Next on the agenda, moving on, we have another major achievement for certification. Lieutenant Chris Bernhardy has achieved Fire Inspector 2 level. Currently, that's the highest you can get in Michigan. Eventually, there'll be a Fire Inspector 3 and a Fire Inspector 4, I believe. So very notable, good achievement. Next up, I believe Chris has a slide we just wanted to share with you at this time, legal expenses. And that we try to make it simple. It just shows you where some of the expenses are going, where they've gone. Also, I think the legal expense has a bit of a twist in far. There's $10,000 in legal expenses. That was merely a transfer of money for the underwater inspection on the water main. So the money was transferred through legal. We were reimbursed for that. So, but it just shows you where we're at this time of the year. I thought since it was the end of December, that it was appropriate to show you that. Do you have any questions on that? You want to talk to me afterwards? That's fine. Or now is fine. Okay, nothing heard. Next on the agenda, I have ISO. And there's times I get busy and distracted, and this was one of the times. I omitted some essential people that influenced me and helped me with ISO improvement. Number one, Mark Becken, Cal Lake Sewer and Water Authority. It's notable that he helped me. I want everyone to know that. Jane Verplank encouraged me to continue to pursue a 3 classification. And last but not least is Chris Manos, who was the biggest influence with a 3 rating. And I want everyone to know that. And I apologize to Mark, Jane, and Chris for not putting that in my report. Completely my omission. I have no excuse. I just messed up.
No worries.
Not a big deal.
We'll forgive you.
Thank you. That concludes my chief comments, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Good job, Chris.
Moving on. Unfinished business. Gee, this will be nice when this is finished business. COVID-19.
Yes, it's something very important. As you know, COVID has essentially fundamentally changed the way we live, work, and think. I was approached last week by the county, brought into the county to have a meeting with them. And the meeting was about if I could orchestrate the fire service in Allegan County to be available via a mutual aid agreement. Essentially what they're saying is emergency management can receive a request from Allegan County Health Department. Emergency management would be a Public Act 390 dispatch the fire service to serve as strike teams at destinations to be determined. It's something you should know, because if that does happen, I'm reasonably sure that our budget will be impacted. There's no one that's going to pay us back. This is a community public service. Mutual aid agreements that I have currently forbid you from billing anybody. So They wanted to get a sense of direction. Would I be receptive to presenting that to the 20 fire chiefs? And I was directed to respond to that in a positive fashion. So it's gone up the chain. It also changes liability and some things of that nature as far as what medical control directive you're under. That's very critical. The counties or our medical control. So there is a very good chance the fear is we're going to exhaust volunteers. This is going to go on for months. My wife and I staffed Saturday. I took a comp day today. I worked till 2:30. We vaccinated 260 people Saturday. We were projected to do about 250 today. This is what community service is about.
Where are you doing those?
They're all different locations, Taru. The one today was at Allegan High School. Saturday, it was at Allegan County Health Department. So they're
Are there any coming this way?
Yes, and I have that on the agenda to share with you. So when I saw the original listing of the schools, for example, one might ask, why didn't you do it at the fire department? The state has to approve it, the county has to approve it, and the incident commander has to approve it. There was a belief that most of the fire departments were not big enough to handle the influx of people and traffic control. When you do an observation, which is 15 to 30 minutes, you have to have everyone positioned 6 feet apart. It takes a large area when you're doing 40 or 50 people an hour. So they reached out to the schools, and most of the schools were all for it. Saugatuck was not selected. I was a bit perplexed by that. So I reached out to the task force, which I'm one of the 7 members, and Saugatuck is an Ottawa school system, so it was an oversight. They were not approached. We approached them. Of course, they gave us the green light. I got a memorandum of understanding signed by Dr. Travis last Friday. That went to Allegan Central. Scott Corbin, the emergency management director, and I went and surveyed the gymnasium yesterday. We spent about 2 hours over there to make sure that it would work. Our recommendation was to seriously consider Saugatuck as a point of vaccination. So it's in the hands above me, but I'm hoping that we can open up a point for the public there. All that gets scheduled by others, and when I know, you'll know.
Okay, thank you.
So, anybody have any questions about COVID?
No, but Greg, I think I'll call you tomorrow because I made some phone calls to them and I'm confused. So maybe you can help me.
Sure. Let's talk tomorrow tonight, Drew.
Okay. All right, good.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, moving on to new business. We have 2020 year-end statistics review.
So I thought we'd just kind of highlight some of the statistics for the year end, which I think is very appropriate. Let the board know. Year end, we ended up with about 12% down. We did not have the tourism. Certainly a lot of the calls changed. They ramped up at certain times. But basically, what do you need to know to report to your people? We're down about 12%. Other highlights, really nothing dramatic here. Time of the days are all predictable. It's during the day when we're the busiest. We finished up the year with priority 1 and 2 calls, or about 482 calls. So all this is the handiwork and genius of Eric Kirchert, and he puts all the data together. He can import it, export it. We are still under 6 minutes for response time. I am very proud of that, of our crews. And I think one reason is we certainly have staffing at the station we use geography in our favor. And anytime we're under 6.5 minutes, that's to be applauded. Everything else is pretty much the typical matrix. You can see response times from AMR. And unless the board has something specific you want to reach out to me, that pretty much covers the highlights for the year. Oh, there is one report also, and Eric and I thought was important, Eric as well, thought it was important we share with you my responses. And I think it's right there, okay. So at the bottom, yes, thank you, Chris. Total responses, the orange and the gray, it shows outside of my normal response time. Normal response hours are defined on the right-hand side of the chart. And outside of normal hours, the amount of hours. So basically it's 128 hours above and beyond my normal hours, just so the board knows what I'm doing, when, and what I'm doing. This does not cover or address meetings. This is strictly incident response. So I wanted to share that with you for the year end. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those.
Any questions from the board?
What are good intent calls that you have under the incident reports or I type?
Sure, good intent calls can be where you come and do a lift assist. Help me, would you look at my smoke alarm that's on a cathedral ceiling, a vaulted ceiling?
Okay,
So service calls, good intent calls kind of run along those lines.
okay,
It's not an emergency call.
okay.
East side of the
All right.
pond.
That's all I have, Jane, for new business. Thank you.
Moving on, is there any public comment? You can use this time to comment on anything. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment? Okay. Moving on. I don't see anybody. Chris, do you see anybody?
I do not know. No one's raised their hand or virtually or on the screen that I can see.
Okay, fire board comments. Get my screen up here. Aaron Miller, you're always last. Let's make you first.
I don't have anything other than to say, thank you to the fire board fire district for the work that went into the finances and the great audit. And thanks to the district as well for all the work you're doing to help with COVID vaccinations. I think it's important. I understand that it costs money, but it's also, a clear crisis that we should do our part in. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Eric Beckman.
Nothing except that I don't know if the board knows that we have the appeals meeting February 1, but sorry to take Aaron's thunder away, but just to let them know we are meeting then.
Yes, that meeting is February 1 at 6 o'clock. It'll be a Zoom meeting. Okay, Scott Phelps.
I've got nothing this month.
All righty. How about Dan Fox?
Just one thing that is apparently an oversight, but I think if I'm right, about this time of year, last year, we approved a new salary structure for the chief. That resulted in his current salary. And in that effort, we also agreed that that would be reviewed and in all likelihood added to 6 months into the game. And for whatever reasons, people are busy, COVID's screwing with everybody. We never got around to that. So that, I believe, we're committed to doing, and so we are several months late in making good on that commitment. So I don't know the procedure for doing that. I don't know if we need to, I mean, I hate to see something like that drop yet another month for an agenda item, and by the same token, I don't think, the end of a meeting is a great place to say, okay, add this amount or whatever. But as I say, I bring it up as an issue, not with a solution. Sorry.
Well, I think at this point, the only we can do is add it to next month's agenda and take care of it then for sure.
So, Chris, I think you've been doing some background work on this, correct? We need
Yeah,
some
we,
comparisons. I think the chief is underpaid in comparison to other community leaders in this area. So we need some facts and figures. You got some for us?
yes, we did do a study of chief's wages in West Michigan sometime around the 6-month mark when we were supposed to, and then I believe we forgot to put it on the agenda.
Does it make sense to have, a 2 or 3 person study group to hash through all that and make some sort of clear recommendation to the board the next meeting?
I think that'd be a good idea, Dan, because it's really hard to find comparisons because chiefs and chiefs' duties vary so much throughout the community and so much throughout fire departments. Many departments don't have full-time chiefs, and it's just hard to get comparables. So possibly we should assign a committee to look into all of this and maybe come up with some kind of a chart for the next meeting. I would be only too happy to chair this committee. And Dan, it sounds like you want to be on it. Is there anybody else that would like to be on this committee?
I don't need to be on it. I'd be happy to be on it, but I'm running for office.
Anybody else?
Well, I would, but I'm not moving out of the house right now. I just had knee surgery, so I don't know when I can move and when I can drive, and I don't know any of this stuff yet. So I don't think it's a good idea if I did it right now. Otherwise, I'd love to.
Everybody take one step backwards. Okay.
Scott, come on, Scott.
I could probably join you on that.
Okay, that would be great. Okay, Dan and I and Scott will see if we can come up with some facts and figures for the rest of you. We'll start this after February 1 because until February 1, we're going to be kind of busy with this Board of Appeals.
Got it.
Okay, good job. I like that.
Let's see, where were we? Stacy.
I will send you guys what we did already, or at least the data we have, and then you can decipher what you would like out of it. So.
Okay, great, thank you. Stacy.
The only thing I have is, I don't know, I'm sure you're all aware now that Griffin Graham is moving to South Haven. So we have hired an interim manager, Joe Fry, and he's going to work with Griffin starting tomorrow. We got a week left, and so we're going to be real busy getting Joe up to speed and just getting to know him. So hopefully I can bring him to the next meeting and introduce you to him.
We've lost our one public commenter attendee.
I know, and we were all just really upset because he's just been incredible, but we understand. I mean, he always wanted to end up in South Haven and this opportunity came. So we just feel that we were lucky to have him for the 18 months we had him, and hopefully Joe's got as much enthusiasm. I'm sure he'll be a little different, but he's young, out of college. So I'm sure he seems very energetic, and so far so good, but let's see how it goes.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Stacy, if it makes sense, you might want to think about connecting him with, at least just for information, with the new incoming city manager in Saugatuck, just because they're going to both be in sort of the same learning curve position about the same
Oh,
time.
that's a good idea, Dan. I'm sure that we're gonna, I know they got a lot of meetings. Thursday, we're meeting with the attorney and catching them up on all the fire things that we got going on with, what's that called over there? The ski thing and, yeah, can't think of the name right now.
Construction Board of Appeals.
Yes.
Board of Appeals.
So I don't know. We got a lot of work to do the next week to get him caught up, but I'm sure Griffin will work really hard to help him. So, and Griffin has also offered to be available to us for calls, in case we run into problems. So yeah, we're going to miss him though. We really enjoyed having him.
Agreed.
Good man.
Okay, thank you. Drew?
All I have to say is again, a thanks to Chris for putting these packets together. They're fantastic. I love them. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, Mr. Beckman.
When you guys put this salary together or something like that, and I've had conversations with other board members, I would prefer not to get this information on Friday to make a decision on a Monday meeting. I know Greg's salary is, to me, not as big of a thing as, say, a $750,000 fire truck the last time. But I guess my feeling is when we are making major decisions, I'd like more than 2 days or 3 days to think it through, plus and minuses, maybe constituents in the neighborhood. Not so much, like I said, not so much Greg thing, but the last fire truck that we purchased, I don't know. I would have liked to maybe even had a workshop and hear the plus and minuses and everything else. Just my opinion.
Okay, we'll keep you posted, Eric. We'll keep the board posted of where we are, and we'll try to give you more, or we'll give you information as it comes along.
Thank you.
Okay. Chief, do you have anything more?
No, ma'am. Thank you, board, for everything.
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a
I'll make a
motion to
motion
adjourn
to
the meeting.
adjourn.
I think the two of us.
Everyone wants to adjourn.
I'll support.
Got a motion from Poland, support from Beckman to adjourn. All those, I guess we need a roll call vote.
Yes, ma'am. So 4:49 p.m. Pullen,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Phelps,
Yes.
Aldrich,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes.
Verplank,
Yes.
and Miller.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, board.
Thank you.
Bye.